Have you ever thought about buildings that aren't just shelters, but actually embody a whole way of thinking?
Mm.
That's kind of what we find with some of the really early Buddhist architecture in India. We're talking over 2,000 years back.
It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it's more than just old stone. It feels like Buddhist thought made solid, three-dimensional.
Absolutely. And when we dig into this, using the sources we've got, you start to see it's not just about the physical structure.
Right.
It's a really powerful expression of spiritual searching and also a fascinating crossroads for art and culture.
So that's our plan for this deep dive, right?
Yeah.
To explore the heart of it, the stupas, viharas, chaityas, these cave temples.
Exactly. We want to give you a really solid feel for why they matter, but, without getting lost in every single tiny detail.
Kind of the essential guide.
Yeah, think of it like that. Your focused tour through a truly amazing architectural story.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. What were the big ideas, the fundamentals shaping how these buildings were designed and what they were for?
Well, the biggest influence, and the sources are clear on this, was the religion itself, the Buddhist teachings.
So the designs weren't just random aesthetic choices.
Not at all. They directly mirrored Buddhist principles.
Mhm.
And beyond just the spiritual side, there was this real focus on simplicity, balance.
That sounds like more than just looks.
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
It was deeply connected to religious devotion.
Yeah.
It suggests a kind of harmony, you see, between the building itself and the inner spiritual path.
Like the Buddha's middle path, but in architecture.
Sort of, yeah. That idea reflected in the balanced forms.
And these ideas, they needed actual materials to become real.
Yeah.
What can our sources tell us about, the nuts and bolts?
Yeah, the sources point to very consistent use of natural stuff, stone, wood, specific colors sometimes. Sandstone comes up a lot, especially local sandstone.
Okay.
And sculpture was incredibly important. Vital, really.
I bet.
And what's really interesting there is this blend, this fusion you see between the traditional Indian styles and the Greco-Buddhist art from Gandhara.
Gandhara. That's the Northwest region, right? Alexander the Great and all that.
Exactly. That cultural exchange brought in some Hellenistic, sort of Greek artistic ideas, like making human figures look more naturalistic.
So you see that in the Buddhist figures and stories carved into the building.
Precisely. It created this unique visual language.
That mix must have led to some really striking monuments. Let's maybe start with the most iconic one, the stupa.
Good place to start.
What is a stupa, really? It looks like a mound, but it's more than that, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. At its heart, a stupa is a sacred Buddhist monument. Very often, it contains relics maybe of the Buddha himself or other key figures.
So a pilgrimage destination.
Definitely. A major pilgrimage site and a focus point for devotion, for practice.
And they have specific parts, right? Our sources mention characteristics.
Yes, several key features. That big, solid dome shape, the hemisphere, that's often read as representing the entire cosmos, or maybe the Buddha's enlightened mind.
Wow.
Then on top of the dome, there's the harmika. It's like a square railing. It's said to symbolize the realm of the gods.
And the spire-like thing on top of that.
That's Chhatravali, usually a series of like 3 discs or umbrellas stacked up. They stand for royalty, honor, but also the 3 jewels of Buddhism.
Okay.
Right? The Buddha, the Dharma, his teachings, and the Sangha, the community.
Right. And there's a path around the base.
The Pradakshina Patha. That walkway is specifically for walking around the stupa circumambulation. It's a ritual, a form of meditation, and showing respect.
You see pictures of these everywhere. Are there some really famous examples that show these features well?
For sure. The Sanchi Stupa in Madhya Pradesh, probably the most famous.
Right.
Our sources highlight that it goes way back to Emperor Ashoka's time. So really early, really
An
important.
activational one, almost.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Then there's the Barhut Stupa, also Madhya Pradesh. It's mostly gone now, sadly, but it's known for its very early style and incredibly detailed carvings. Real storytelling in stone. And the Amaravati Stupa down in Andhra Pradesh, that one was famous for its beautiful, intricate carvings, but in white marble. Shows a different regional flavor.
So different styles even within the stupa form.
Exactly. Each gives you a different angle on how the idea evolved.
Okay, so moving from these solid monuments to spaces people actually went inside, let's talk chaitas. How are they different?
The main difference is what they're for. Chaityas are basically Buddhist prayer halls. Temples, you could say. Places for the community to gather, worship, meditate.
So they have an interior, unlike the
Right.
stupa.
Right. You usually find a smaller doorway that opens into a long hall. And often, way at the back, there's a stupa inside for veneration.
Ah, so the stupa is still present, but within the hall.
Often, yes.
Hmm.
And interestingly, chaityas sometimes have that Chatra Valley element on the outside, like a spire. It visually connects them back to the freestanding stupas, reinforces the sacred feel.
Any other key features mentioned?
Yeah, the sources mention something called the Arasu Asana. It's like a throne or a platform. It seems it was a symbolic seat for representing the Bodhi tree, where the Buddha reached enlightenment.
So these were the main gathering spots for monks and maybe lay followers too.
Precisely. And very often, these chaityas were actually carved right out of rock cliffs, cave temples.
Rock-cut architecture. Incredible effort.
Absolutely. The sources point to places like the Badami caves in Karnataka, and then the really famous ones like Ellora and Baja caves in Maharashtra. Amazing feats of engineering and art.
Okay, and then there are the viharas. What was their function?
Viharas were the monasteries, essentially, the residences for the Buddhist monks, where they lived, studied, practiced together.
So like dormitories.
More than just dorms. The layout described in our sources usually has a big central hall. That could be for assemblies, teachings, communal practice.
Multi-purpose space.
Right, and then branching off that hall, usually along the sides, you'd have smaller rooms, the monks' individual living quarters.
Makes sense.
And in some later viharas, they also added a special shrine room, a garbhagriha. This would house a Buddha statue. So monks could also do individual devotion right there in the monastery.
So really complete living and learning centers integrated into the architecture.
Exactly. They were crucial for keeping the teachings alive and spreading them. Think about famous examples the sources mention, like Nalanda University in Bihar.
Legendary center of learning.
Absolutely. And Taxila, which is now in Pakistan. These were huge educational hubs, drawing people from all over. The Ajanta caves also have major viharas alongside the chaityas. It shows how life and worship were woven together.
It's amazing how these different building types, Stupa, Chaitya, Vihara, all serve specific yet linked roles in how Buddhism unfolded in India.
Yeah, it's a very integrated system.
You mentioned the caves already, but the sources seem to emphasize Buddhist caves more broadly. What's the bigger picture there, beyond just housing chaityas and viharas?
Well, the whole tradition of cave architecture, especially as it developed from the Gupta period onwards, is just a monumental achievement in itself.
You mean the scale of it?
The scale, the skill. Sites like Ajanta and Ellora, which we mentioned, but also places like Karla Caves, Kwanheri Caves near Mumbai, they show this incredible dedication.
How so?
I mean, carving entire monasteries, halls, cells, complex facades with intricate sculptures directly out of solid rock. It's mind-boggling. It speaks volumes about their commitment, their engineering skills, their artistry.
And carving them into cliffs, perhaps, offered seclusion.
That seems likely. These cave sites often combine the prayer halls, chaityas, and living quarters, viharas, into one complex, creating these self-contained monastic worlds, often in quite remote spots, perfect for retreat and focus.
So we've covered the main types of structures. What about the different artistic styles that popped up across India? Our sources mention regional variations.
Yes, definitely. As Buddhism spread, you naturally got different local flavors. The Gandhara style up in the northwest is really distinct because of that mix of Greek and Indian art we touched on earlier.
The Hellenistic influence.
Right. You see it in how the Buddha is depicted, more human-like perhaps, and the use of certain classical patterns. Then you contrast that with the Mathura style from central India.
How is it different?
It feels much more indigenous. Often uses that characteristic red sandstone. The artistic language is different.
And wasn't there one in the south, too? A Maravati?
Yes, the Aravati style in Andhra Pradesh, known for those elegant, detailed carvings in white marble we mentioned with the stupa. It has its own way of telling stories in the sculptures, very distinct.
It really gives you a sense of the living, changing architectural tradition, adapting as it moved.
Absolutely. Not monolithic at all.
So pulling it all together, what's the lasting importance, the significance of all this Buddhist architecture in India?
Oh, it's huge on multiple levels.
Yeah.
As the sources really emphasize, these buildings aren't just historical artifacts. They physically embody Buddhist, religious, and philosophical ideas. You can almost feel the concepts and the forms.
And artistically.
They're prime examples of early Indian sculpture and building techniques. They show this amazing blend of technical know-how and deep artistic vision.
And did this influence spread beyond India?
Massively. Buddhist architectural ideas and art styles radiated outwards. They had a profound impact on the architecture across Asia, China, Japan, Mongolia, Thailand, many others. It shows just how powerful and adaptable these forms were.
A truly global impact originating there.
No question.
Okay, so if we had to boil it down, what are the main takeaways from this deep dive?
I'd say the core thing is that Buddhist architecture in India, through all these forms, the stupas, traityas, viharas, the incredible cave temples, is this powerful marriage of deep spiritual belief and amazing artistic creation.
Faith and form working together.
Exactly. And the unique styles that came about show both the core Buddhist ideas and how they interacted with local art and cultures. It leaves this incredible legacy that frankly still resonates today. It's all about that dynamic between belief and creativity.
It really does make you think how these ancient places can still sort of speak to us centuries on. And maybe for you listening, here's a thought. How do these architectural ways of expressing Buddhist ideas, things like impermanence, mindfulness, the search for enlightenment, how might they still connect with our lives today? Perhaps thinking about these old forms can give us fresh eyes for how we shape and live in our own spaces now.